been a little bit. This one's going to be short because honestly, not too much to update about since last time. I have effectively just been doing work and church and that sort of stuff. So, in terms of accountability, it's been okay. Uh, uh, yeah, it's been okay. I can't really think of any other details other than it's been okay. Uh, there's been the same old types of attacks and stuff like that of like in dreams, but like I haven't actually you know full blown watched any porn or masturbated or anything like that. So yeah, that's fine. Still occasionally get attacked via thoughts that I'll try to shut down as quickly as possible. Yeah, seems like that's not necessarily the uh, largest point of contention in my life in terms of sin right now. That's probably like some type of uh, I'd imagine that would be some kind of uh, like lack of grace for people driving out in the road, and me getting very, very angry and frustrated at different curveballs that have been thrown at me. For instance, the wallet. For instance, like whenever I actually left my blower door equipment at a homeowner's place, and they were in East Vancouver at one point, and I had gotten all the way back home. I had like relaxed on the couch for a bit, and then I remembered that there was a drink that the homeowner had given me, and I put it into the my blower door bag thing. So I went into the car, into the trunk, in order to see if, in order to just grab it from there. But no, apparently I'd left it all the way like 50 minutes away in the homeowner's place, but it was rush hour traffic at this point. And so I had to drive all the way there and back in rush hour traffic, making it what would normally be like an hour 40 become like 2.5 hours. And on top of all of that, I still have, well, at that point, I had the car, which had overheating problems, and it was very, very hot that day. And so when I'm trying to blow the hot air into the cabin, it was just, I was being boiled alive, and just the entire way there and the entire way back, I was just fuming in like rage and frustration and anger, and yeah, just it was not a pretty point with my heart at that point. It was pretty similar with like the wallet as well, just except not, maybe not to the same degree. Uh, just with my I think I've never really noticed it before, but I might have some unresolved uh, anger problems. Maybe because I haven't really gotten angry too much in the past. I haven't really had too much of reason to. And whenever it would be a point in which I could have been, it wasn't big enough that I would have. And so maybe I haven't really needed to deal with it too much. And so now that stuff like this is happening, and you know it's wasting time and being incredibly inconvenient, sapping energy and stuff like that, it's much more frustrating now than it's used to be. especially now that I'm like mostly relying on myself, kind of. Uh, and so, like, in the past, whenever I maybe like left something somewhere, I could, push it off to someone else and feel bad, but not necessarily get angry. But now I'm getting angry at myself for these problems, and also just angry, I don't know, in general, maybe at God. I don't, because, you know, I know that He can prevent these things from happening, I suppose. Although it's like a very petty reason to get angry at God, but it's still incredibly annoying. Yeah. It's like, during those times, the thought that goes through my mind is, hey, what are you trying to teach me at this moment? What is so important right now that I need to go through this in order to learn something? Uh, yeah. And so I suppose at that point, that's my opportunity in order to learn to, I guess for the wallet, that was trusting in Him that would be resolved, that He had things under control. And I suppose for the Lord or and whatever, that one's still a bit of an enigma. Maybe it's just to straight up deal with the anger problems, because that was something. And maybe to not be so dumb and double check that I still have my equipment. Um, yeah. With but actually, I've diagnosed the problem. So I figured out that it's a lack of coolant. Well, not a lack of coolant. It's a coolant leak from my car. That's why it was overheating, and that's why it was so weird and like somewhat intermittent. Because when I would go to the to change the oil, they'd fill up the coolant, and so I wouldn't see the problems for a while, and I wouldn't necessarily tie it in my mind to necessarily the coolant. I was thinking this had something to do with me changing the oil or something like that. I don't know. I don't know cars. So they'd top up my coolant for free, uh, and I wouldn't see problems for a little bit, and then suddenly I'd see problems, and then I went again in order to. I thought that like the coolant problem wasn't. I thought that it was a a bad coolant because the coolant hadn't been changed in many years, since probably the car was first uh, put on the road. And so I went to the oil change place, a different oil change place, and they checked the coolant and they said that it was fine, even though the previous oil change place said that it was really old and gross and bad. So they topped it off as well, I think. And so I didn't see the same overheating problems, and then it cropped up again. And so I checked the coolant thing, and it was basically bone dry. So I filled that up with a bunch of water, and now I'm intermittently just pouring water into there, and it's doing fine now. Although I'll have to put antifreeze into there during the winter, just so that the car doesn't break if I still have the car by winter. So that's one less thing to worry about, at least. And so now I don't have to drive with three windows down with the heat blasting in my face, with also the heat from the sun blasting in my face. So that's nice. Um, at least I can be thankful about that. Um, yeah. So because there's a leak, I just have to keep pouring water into there. So I have this 2 liter bottle that I just have full of water that I keep in my car, that I'll just like, pour a big portion of the water in there every now and then in order to, you know, keep it from overheating. Which is definitely not a permanent solution, but given the fact that I'm going to be replacing this car soon, don't really want to go to a mechanic in order to diagnose like a specific pipe or whatever that's leaking and replace that, which would cost who knows how much, alongside the 7 other problems that I see with the car. So hopefully this car can serve me for another like 2 months or so until I have enough extra cash to get a decent used car. Yep. Um, I mean, work is work. And it's been somewhat boring in that direction. Um, in church, there's been some interesting things going on, uh, although I don't completely understand all of that. There's been a theme of courage that's been flowing through, I guess, the past week or so, um, of God equipping us with courage for this upcoming time and season or whatever. And that's both exciting and really, I guess, scary because, well, if he's going to be equipping us with courage, then, well, what are we going to be courageous against? And I suppose we shouldn't necessarily worry about that. That we should just be courageous, but I can't help but think ahead in that way. Um, yeah, but maybe it's generic. Maybe it's like, hey, let's have courage for this time because uh, it it's good to equip ourselves with courage in order to face larger things in the future, and be courageous against something small right now. Yeah. All right. And okay. Other news. In terms of my driver's license, apparently, I went to the licensing place today in order to transfer it over from my Washington license to a BC license. And well, uh, I had all of my identification, but it was all American ID. And so they need me to apply for a Canadian birth certificate because what I have on me is a American born abroad birth certificate. Uh, so and I have an American passport and I've got my American Washington driver's license. So yeah, I didn't have my Canadian birth certificate on me, and that's probably in Linden, maybe. So I have to apply for one of those. It's like $27, but what's really annoying is that it's probably going to take 2 to 3 weeks in order to come here, and then I'll be able to apply for the driver's license, and then I'd be able to transfer my insurance, and then I'd be able to get the police check in order to give that to my work, and then I'd be able to get the new car in order to. It's just delaying everything, is really all that it's doing, which is annoying, but hey, I guess at least I can just simply focus on this upcoming exam, which I haven't started studying for, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, Proverb down below, and I'll talk to you guys some other time, probably next week or within a week.